Hey everybody, in this video we are going to be learning how to make Labubu. I think that's how you pronounce it. Such a goofy little critter. I'm not even sure if I like it or if I don't like it, I can't tell, but either way, this is what we're gonna be making today. Here is everything that we're going to need to get started. So I have a weight 6 blanket yarn here. And then I have two colors of the worsted weight 4. One of them is going to be like the face color and the second one is going to be the accent color. I also have a black and white weight 1 yarn, and these are going to be used for doing like the face detailing, so like the eyes and the smile. I also have 3 different size crochet hooks, one for each type of yarn. So I've got a 7mm hook for the weight 6, a 3.75mm for the weight 4, and a 2.75mm for the weight 1. And then I've got some stitch markers. I've got 2 different sizes of tapestry needle for working either the blanket yarn or the smaller yarns, and a pair of scissors and stitch markers. Oh, and our fluff. So we are going to start with the face insert first. So we're going to grab our worsted yarn and we're going to do a magic ring with 6 single crochet. Okay. Now in round 2, we're going to increase all the way around. So do 6 increases. I'm going to grab my stitch marker here. There we go. And so it begins. Round 3 is going to go single crochet and then increase all the way around. So there's a single crochet, this one's an increase, single crochet, and increase. Okay, and I also just realized I don't even have my light on. So let's turn that on real quick. Hey, there we go, now we can see. Let's start round 4. So we're gonna do single crochet 2. Wow, that's actually so much better. I'm sure that's gonna make a big difference for you guys too. There we go. Single crochet 2 and then increase, and we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, for round 5, we're going to single crochet 1. And we're going to increase here. We're going to basically just kind of keep increasing with the same pattern, but I'm just going to offset the increases so we don't end up with like a hexagon all the way around. So we single crocheted 1, and then we're going to increase here. And then we'll do the pattern, so single crochet 3 and then increase. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, and then we only have 2 little single crochets at the very end. There we go. Perfect. Let's move on to the next round. We're going to single crochet 4 and then increase. To anybody wondering, yes, I am crocheting my circle inside out. I just find it's more comfortable to hold it this way until we have to flip it out the right side. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's like this. So I would be crocheting this way. I just don't like to hold the piece that way. I can do it faster this way. How many did I do here? 1, 2, 3, 4, increase. Did I almost miss an increase there? 1, 2, 3, yep, I was just about to go right past it. I have to stop daydreaming while I do this. I keep losing track of my counting. I do all of my pattern filming in the evening after a full day with 2 little toddlers. Sometimes I'm a little bit fried. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yay, we made it to the end without an extra stitch or anything. I was 100% certain that I wasn't gonna have the right count there. Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna start round 7. So we're gonna offset our increases again. So we're just going to single crochet 2. And then do our increase. And then go into a regular pattern. So single crochet 5 and then increase. And then after we work all the way around with the increases, we have 3 single crochet left over to complete that round. Now we're going to single crochet 6 and increase all the way around. Okay, now we're going to do a couple of rounds, actually 7 rounds of just single crochet around. So this is going to be rounds 9 to 15. All right, we did it. Wow, that was such a haul. So we just finished round 15. I'm gonna just kind of take my hook out of here for a second. I'm gonna go back and just secure my magic ring because I'm gonna be flipping my work right side out now. So to secure my magic ring, I basically just take the yarn tail and kind of go back around and follow the ring all the way back around. That way you can't tug on it basically and have it open back up. Okay. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna flip this the right way out now. So we're gonna start decreasing. So that's kind of where we're at. And we are going to start round, what are we at, 16? Yeah, round 16, we are going to single crochet 6 and then decrease, and we're gonna do that all the way around. Once we get to the decrease, every single video, I always show how I do my decreases. I think probably because I do them a little bit weird. I don't want anybody like wondering what's going on in the comments. So I'm gonna show you guys how I do my decreases in here as well. And you're welcome to do it my way, or you can do it whatever preferred way that you normally do your decreases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so for the decrease, I like to insert into my first stitch, yarn over and pull through. I yarn over and pull through the 1 loop, and then I go into my next stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and I pull through all 3. So that's what it looks. It kind of creates like a little fake stitch, kind of like in the middle there. So I'm gonna show you, once we get to the next round, how we work into that decrease. So I'm gonna show you guys one more time on the decrease here. So insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, and then into the next stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 3. Okay, let's start round 17. We're gonna offset our decreases like we did with the increases at the top. So we are going to do single crochet 2 and then decrease. And then we're going to be working single crochet 5 and then decrease all the way around. So I'm just coming up here to working into the first decrease. 1, 2, there it is, 3. So you can see here, I've got kind of like my stitch down here, and I've got 2 bars. I've got the top one where you kind of like normally insert your hook into. And then I got this fake stitch down here. So if I were to just insert into the top bars as you normally would, I get a bit of a gap. Can you guys see that on camera? I've got a little bit of a gap there. So we want to get rid of that. So we're going to insert instead under this bottom loop down here. So we've got kind of like a fake stitch. It goes in nicely. And you can see that just completely cinched up the entire decrease. You wouldn't even know that it existed because we did create that fake stitch underneath it with like the yarn over and pull through 1 loop. And yeah, now we don't have any gaps. So I'm going to show you that one more time when we get to the next one. So we've got 3 single crochet, 4 and 5, and a decrease. Okay, so now we're at the decrease again. So again, I'm going to be going under not the top set of bars, but this bottom one. If you feel around for it, you can see like where the hook's going to be coming through on the back. There's kind of like that little floating stitch. And that's it. Now you've decreased with no gaps. Okay, and then we have 3 single crochet at the very end here. Starting around 18, we're still decreasing. We're going to do single crochet 4 and then decrease all the way around. Okay, so for round 19, we're going to offset again. So we're going to do single crochet 1 and then a decrease. And then what we're going to repeat around is single crochet 3 and then decrease. And then right at the very end of this round, we have 2 single crochet. Okay, round 20. We are going to single crochet 2 and then decrease all the way around. We are almost done. Kind of what I think is the boring part of this project. I'm basically just making like a giant beige ball, which isn't as fun as the rest of it. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of looking forward to moving on to the next part. Plus, keeping your tension tight, working in worsted yarn and everything, it kind of hurts my fingers after a long time. Do you guys feel that way too? Or maybe I just use like super tension as well, so I could be doing it to myself. Okay, so now we're going to start round 21, another decreasing round. I'm not going to start stuffing just yet. I like to wait until the closing hole is a little bit smaller, but if you want to, you can start stuffing now. In this round, we're going to do single crochet 1 and decrease all the way around. All right, so I'm gonna start stuffing this now. Fluff. For this guy, I am going to make him quite firm. When working with like a worsted yarn and an amigurumi, I don't really like to have them super soft or anything, because I feel like with this yarn you would expect it to have like a nice firm shape, but totally up to your preference. And I'm just making sure that the yarn gets pushed into all of the outer rim here, so we don't have any little soft pockets. It's actually surprising how much stuffing is needed for just like a small little ball. So I can tell I'm a little soft in this corner still. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. I'm gonna do the last round here and then kind of top it up. So the last round is 6 decreases all the way around. This is like the most awkward round in any amigurumi piece. It's not my favorite. I find I'm always picking up fluff on my hook as I work. It doesn't look nice. We're gonna try to make this look nice. Also, fortunately, if closing up amigurumi rings is not your strong suit, all of this part is actually going to be hidden inside the hood. So even if it doesn't look beautiful, it won't matter. I like to use the table as leverage to get my tension nice and snug on this round. Especially as my hands are tired after working that whole circle. There we go. I think that was it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and fasten off. Now I'm gonna give myself a nice long tail because I'm actually gonna be using this yarn tail to sew the hood onto the face. So I'm gonna give myself, we're gonna say maybe like 18 inches of yarn, something like that. We better like err on the side of caution and give ourselves too much instead of not enough. Here we go. And yes, I can tell I do need just a little bit of extra stuffing here. I use my hook to get it in. How do you feel about that? I think maybe just like one extra chunk just right down the center. And then we'll be good. Okay, yeah, super happy with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and close up the hole now. So using our needle, we're just gonna kind of weave back and forth through all of the loops on our final round. So I'm gonna find the one adjacent to our fasten off. I'm gonna go through the 2 loops on the decrease because I have that extra like hidden stitch basically. If you worked your decreases differently, you may not have the 2 loops to go through. But basically we're gonna go up to down and then kind of like under and up. over and down. We're going to zigzag all the way through, under, up, over, down, and then the last one going up. Okay, and then we'll cinch that shut, and that's what we get at the very end. Now, just to secure this, I like to just kind of weave, just like how we closed or tightened up our magic ring on the other side by weaving it all the way through. I'm going to do the same thing on this side here. So basically, I'm just going to be going under these loops. Okay. Let's go under this one last time. And then I don't have to fasten off this yarn because we are going to be using this yarn tail, like I said, to sew the hood on. So I'm actually gonna leave it just like this. So this is what we have right now. Kind of just like a little boxy circle for the face. Next, we're gonna begin with the hood that goes around the face. Okay, so we're going to grab our blanket yarn, our weight 6 yarn, and our 7mm hook. And we are going to start this off with a magic ring. And we are going to work 8 single crochet into the magic ring. Okay, and we'll see if I can close the ring without it snapping. Nice, yay, it's always a good day when that happens. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to be working increases all the way around, so 8 increases. In round 3, we're going to do a single crochet 1 and increase, and repeat that all the way around. In round 4, we're just going to single crochet all the way around. Okay, round 5. Oh, actually we're gonna single crochet all the way around for this round as well. So another 24 stitches. It's funny, if I'm working between the worsted yarn and then the blanket yarn, I feel like I'm actually making so much more progress working with this yarn. Making that little head insert feels like it takes forever. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna just secure my tail here before we get too far. Same way that we did with the insert piece, just kind of looping it back all the way through the magic ring. Okay, and so I want to show you guys what this actually looks like with the insert. So basically it's just going to be hugging it all the way around. So I guess it's a good point to note right now that this fits perfectly with my tension. If you're finding that your hood is not going to go all the way around here, we are going to increase it just a little bit in the next round. But if this isn't like hugging in right up close to your insert, you may want to adjust your tension right now for the hood. This is the only time where the pieces need to fit together nicely with the 2 different kinds of yarn. So it's kind of nice. We don't have to worry about stuffing this hood piece. So if you need to make this a little bit looser to make it bigger, you can totally do that. Or obviously if you need to make it a little bit smaller, you can crochet tighter. But either way, make adjustments now before it's too late and you have to unravel it because it doesn't fit. Okay. So now we're going to do round 6. We're going to increase a little bit here. So we're going to do single crochet 11 and then increase. And then we're going to repeat that one more time. Now we're going to do 2 rounds of just straight single crochet. Okay, now for round 9, we're going to decrease a little bit. So we're going to single crochet 11 and then decrease, and then do that one more time. Okay, so technically we're all done. What I'm going to do, just to kind of give it more of a seamless finish here, I'm going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch to help kind of even out the height between your stitches here. And then I'm also going to do an invisible join. So to do that, we are going to cut off our yarn. Remember, we don't actually need to have a long tail for sewing because we're going to use the worsted yarn. It's kind of hanging out in the top corner here. The worsted yarn from our face insert to sew it together. So we'll just give ourselves a little tail here to work with. And you pull your yarn all the way through that stitch. Okay. Grab our needle. And to do an invisible join, you're going to be looking at the next stitch. So we slip stitched in here. This is our next stitch, skip it, and go to the next adjacent. Okay. And then we're going to be coming back to the stitch that we just came out of, so our slip stitch, which is right here. We just want the back loop only. And all that does is creates, where I actually kind of lost track of where it was. It kind of creates like a fake stitch over top of the adjacent, and it just helps even everything out so you don't have that weird like height difference from working in the round. So I'm just going to kind of secure this on the inside. There we go. I'm actually just going to tie it off with our original yarn tail here. Just going to kind of carry it up to the top here and just tie it off. Okay, and we don't really need a tail. So that is what we look like. Now let's sew it onto our insert. Okay, so with our insert here, where we did that invisible finish, I would like this to be on the bottom of the head, basically attracting like the least amount of attention. Just because, you know, there is a bit of an unevenness there. So I'm gonna stick the head in just like that. Okay, with my yarn tail also facing down, we're gonna start on the bottom for sewing. Okay, and I'm actually quite happy with how that's sitting. If you need to adjust kind of the angle, you can do that as well. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna use this needle. Compared to this little guy that I was using to kind of close up the worsted head, for sewing this, I'd rather use something a little bit bigger. It's gonna be easier on your fingers to use like a thicker needle, because you are gonna have to fight it through all the worsted stitches. Okay, so I'm gonna come up, we're gonna be sewing this right through round, was it round 9? Yes. So the last round of the head all the way around. So let's bring it up through. And how I like to stitch these is with a back stitch. So basically you're going to be going backwards 1 stitch and then forward 2. So it looks like that. Okay. And then what's nice about the worsted is it's actually just going to sink right into the blanket yarn. So you're not even going to know that it's there, which is super convenient. So let's do the next one. So we're going to go back 1 stitch and then forward 2. And that's it. So we're going to do that all the way around the outside. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, let's reach the end. I think when I was sewing when I was sewing 1 little stitch back here, I kind of skirted around the head. So I'm just going to come back up kind of through the head just to take care of that stitch. It would never show up, but I know that it's there, so it's going to bother me. Okay, let's get you tucked back in where you should be. Okay, that makes me feel better. I'm gonna bring that yarn tail back down here, where we would have ended up the first time. There we go. Okay, good. So I've got the little mask here. I'm gonna leave this yarn tail until after we start working the body into the bottom of the head so that I can just tie it off with the yarn that we're adding for the body. It's so cute. It kind of, I'm not really sure what it looks like right now, but it's gonna look like a whole lot more real soon. All right, let's get started on the body. So we're gonna be working in our Bernat yarn again. And what we're going to do to attach it is we're actually going to be stitching right into the bottom of the head. We're gonna be stitching only into the like blanket yarn. We're not gonna be going into the worsted yarn. So you can tell it's not attached all in here. You can insert your hook nicely. So that's exactly what we're gonna be doing. So we are going to be putting 12 single crochet into the bottom of the head. This might take a little finagling to get it look exactly lined up and, you know, centered to the actual head. Basically the way that I think about it is you're going to be doing a square. So like 3, 3, 3, and 3, right? So I like to start at like the back corner. Where do I need to be? 1, 2, so I need to be back here somewhere. So we'll attach and kind of see how it plays out. So we're going to do 1, 2, and let's kind of see how we're centered here. I am going to go 1 more over here, 3. Okay, work up on the other side. 1, 2, and the third one, 3. So that's 6 stitches. Now we're going to go 3 across the front. 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it at all, but my toddler is actually just playing with Play-Doh in the other room, so you might be hearing his voice every once in a while. 3. I can see that it's starting to go off to the side just a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can fix it by coming out further this way. So that's 10, 11, and I've got a bit of a gap to close. I'm just going to work this like a decrease because it just wasn't going to line up the way that I wanted it to. There we go. 12. Okay, cool. So we are centered pretty much as good as it's going to get right there. Okay. Now, you don't have to worry so much. I started mine at the bottom corner over here. That's just kind of where I've always started my work. It does create like a little tiny bit of a gap when you work to the next, like starting the next round. So I like to have it at the back as opposed to the front, but in theory, you could have started anywhere. Now I'm going to secure these ends now, and they're just going to kind of float inside the body. So to do that, I basically just loop it around once or twice so it can never pull straight out. Okay, so that's 1. And we're going to do the same thing with this guy. Just basically find a stitch inside the neck. Loop it around. So now they're not going to pull it anyways, but we'll just give it one last secure there. Okay, cool. So just for the sake of the video, I'm going to trim these. You don't need to, but it's just going to be flopping around while I'm working here. So now we're going to go into round 2. Round 2 is 12 increases. Okay, round 3, we're going to be doing single crochet 11 and then increase. We're going to do that twice. Just be really careful when you're working into this round because we have 24 really squished stitches going all the way around, so be careful not to lose track and skip over them. Make sure you've got the right count at the end of this round. Okay, now we're going to be working rounds 4 and 5. Both of them are single crochet around. In round 6, we're going to do another increase round. So we're going to offset our increases. We're going to start with 6 single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to do our increase. And then 12 single crochet. And then our increase, and then the last 6 single crochet. Okay, our next 2 rounds, so round 7 and 8, are going to be single crochet around. In round 9, we're going to start taking it in a little bit. So we're going to do single crochet 5 and then decrease. And we're going to repeat that around. Okay, and round 10, we're going to do another decrease round. Let's offset it. So we're going to do single crochet 2. And then our decrease. Then we're going to single crochet 4 and decrease and kind of repeat that. And then we'll finish off with a single crochet 2. Okay, so that's where we're at for the body. Now we're going to be starting the legs. Now for working the legs, what we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of the stitch marker. We're going to change where our starting point is, so you don't need that anymore. I'm just going to pull this out here so we can have a better look. Okay, so we need to find the center stitch down the front of the body that's in line with the face. That's going to be our gap between the legs. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with how that sits naturally, and that's kind of my center point. So I'm going to mark the stitch on either side of it. So I've got one here, and I've got one here. Okay, that's where my legs are going to be coming together in the front. This one's going to be unworked, basically in the legs. It doesn't get worked at all. So counting back, we're going to have 9 stitches for each leg, including our marker. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And before I place my next marker, I want to bring my stitches all the way up to that marker right behind my stitch marker. So did I do that backwards? I want to bring it all the way up to the stitch behind my marker. That's what I meant to say. So let's do that. Depending on where you started on your head, like what positioning, will determine basically how many extra stitches you need to the back here. Kind of why I was saying in the beginning, it doesn't really matter where you start in the head, where you attach your yarn, because we're gonna just fix it right now anyways. Okay, so that's kind of where we want it to be. And then our last marker, I know it's gonna have a 1 gap and put it here, but we can count backwards. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and surprise, 9, with a 1 stitch gap between the markers. So that is how our legs are going to be sitting. Again, before we start working, I want to make sure as it sits naturally that it sits nicely. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to start our leg. We are going to be working on this leg first. And we are going to do single crochet 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can get rid of that marker completely. We don't need it anymore. Okay, cool. So now we're going to work round 2. For round 2, we're going to be closing up our leg, basically forming it. So we're going to go back into our first stitch marker this way. Okay, so we're going to start with single crochet there. So we're basically starting a smaller little round in our body. This is where our leg's going to be. Okay, so we already did our single crochet 1, so let's do 2 more single crochet. And a decrease. And then 4 single crochet. Okay, and then the third round of the legs, we're just going to single crochet around, which is 8 stitches. Okay. Now we are actually going to fasten off here. So let's slip stitch into the next stitch and we'll fasten off. I'm going to give myself just a little bit of a tail so that I can use it to secure inside the body. But we're not sewing anything on here. Okay, so that's what that looks like now. We are going to grab our worsted yarn and begin the feet. For the feet, we need to first identify where our toes are going to be sitting. So to do that, we have 3 toes. Basically, you're gonna find the 3 stitches that are most at the front. So for me, it's 1, 2, 3. I'm just gonna mark them so you can see them on camera here. 1, 2, and 3. If you don't have any that line up perfectly, honestly, just kind of eyeball it and pick which ones you think are most at the front. So that's how I'm sitting there. Now to work our feet and toes, we're gonna be grabbing our worsted yarn again and our 3.75 millimeter hook. And we are going to be attaching our yarn to the stitch that comes before our first marker. So I'm looking at it like I'm about to work it. I want to attach to this stitch right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna give myself a tail. Whenever I'm attaching yarn, I'm always gonna give myself a bit of a tail so that I can like knot it and secure it inside after. So I did my chain 1 to secure. I'm gonna put 2 single crochet into that same stitch. So working it like an increase. It looks a little bit awkward, but I promise it's gonna come together. Okay. Now I'm gonna do that for every single stitch. I'm going to work increases all the way around. You can get rid of those markers now. That was really just so you could figure out where you're gonna be attaching your yarn to. Kind of working around where that slip stitch was there. I would say tension for working the worsted into the blanket is that I'm not doing it, I'm realizing I'm not doing it as tight as I did on the face, but still tight enough that you're not going to have fluff coming through any gaps. Okay, so we just worked 8 increases. I'm going to tuck this blanket yarn tail where we fastened off. I'm just gonna stick it inside the body for now. We're gonna come back to it later. Just to tie off, you don't have to do anything special with it. Okay, and now for the rest of the toes, so round 2, we're going to do a single crochet 2. Let's see if I can get into it here. Okay, there's our first one. And now we're gonna start our first like claw. It's worked like a picot, but first, I'll phrase it this way. Working the toes, we're gonna start first with a single crochet, okay? And then the claw itself is gonna be worked kind of like a picot. So we're going to do a chain 3. Okay, and then we're gonna be working into the 2 chains after the hook. So in the second chain from the hook, on the back loop, we're gonna do a slip stitch. And then in that last chain there in the back loop, we're gonna work a single crochet. Okay, it makes kind of like a little nub here. And then we are going to do 1 single crochet in between the toes. So that's worked into the next single crochet. Kind of looks like this, it just kind of floats. Okay, we're gonna do another toe. So the toe starts with a single crochet. And then for the claw part, we do that kind of like modified picot. So chain 3. We'll start with a slip stitch in the second from the hook. And then in the third from hook, we'll do our single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to do a single crochet between the toes. And then our last toe. So single crochet and our like modified picot. Okay. Then we are going to just single crochet the rest. So we have 8 single crochet to make here. Sorry, 9. Okay, it looks kind of silly. It almost looks like duck feet right now before we tighten up those picots. So now we're going to decrease all the way around. So 8 decreases. And I'll show you how we work behind those toes. So our decreases are going to span for basically from one side of the claw to the next. So we're going to insert and begin our decrease, however you do yours, and push your toe back towards you and just go around it into the next single crochet. So we're only working into the single crochets from the previous round. We're not touching any of the chains or anything else. They just kind of float between stitches. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to show you the next one. So begin your decrease on the one side of the toe, and then finish your decrease on the other side. Making sure that your toe is towards you. Okay, and our last one. Behind the toes, perfect. And we will finish our decreasing here. Okay, awesome. So now we have 8 stitches. I'm going to add 2 more decreases just to bring it down to a nice 6 at the bottom. Now, depending on how you like to secure your yarn tails, I like to knot mine together. I find it's easier and less time consuming. So I'm just going to bring this tail somewhere nicer for me to tie off with this yarn tail when it's all done. You can see that it's picked up on this brown tail here as well. Get on the other side of it. Perfect. So I'm just going to stick it through a stitch basically. There we go. So now it's on the outside, so I can easily tie that off when I'm done. I'll show you what I mean at the end here. So let's pick this loop back up and finish off our round with the 2 decreases. Perfect. I'll fasten off, give myself just a little bit of a tail here. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about stuffing yet. If you want to, you can begin stuffing right away. I like to stuff kind of right at the very last minute. So I'm going to close off this foot here. And we're gonna close it off the same way that we did with the head, just kind of by weaving in and out of those final stitches. Okay, and then going back around that final circle. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring it out the same stitch as my last yarn tail, and I'm just going to tie them together and secure it that way. If you wanted to, you could just weave your yarn back and forth through the stitches, but I find this is much faster. Okay. And we will just sink those tails back into the project. What do you guys think so far? I think it is looking so cute. We've got those little toes now. Yay. And wasn't that fun? Like personally, I don't have fun doing the same thing over and over again. So making like the ball for the face is not my favorite, but I think this is a neat little technique. I like kind of playing with the different textures and stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Again, if you would rather stuff your body with a large hole, now's the time to do it. Kind of like stuff in there and stuff. Stuff in there and stuff. But I'm going to do my stuffing after completing this leg. Okay, so you are going to be adding your blanket yarn back to the body again. Give yourself a decently good tail right here because you're going to be using that yarn tail to sew up the open gap between the legs. Okay, so you're going to be adding, this is the front of the body, you're going to be adding your yarn to where your stitch marker is. And then once you've done that, you are going to be working the legs exactly the same way as you did the first time. So I just pulled my yarn tail down from that slip stitch. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be stuffing the body, and then I'm going to tie the two yarn tails where we fastened off between the two legs. I'm just going to tie them together inside the body just because I like to have everything tied off nicely. Again, not super necessary. You've tied off, maybe you want to weave back and forth a little bit, but I take the easy way out and that's how I do it. Okay, friends, we are at that time. We are going to stuff it, or at least I'm gonna stuff it, unless you guys have already stuffed yours. I'm basically just going to be stuffing right into this gap here in the middle, shoving it down, making sure that the neck is nice and secure, and then also I'm gonna be kind of pushing it into the feet as well. All right, so I like how that feels. He's still got like a little bit of like a plush give, but still quite firm too, so I know he's gonna hold his shape. I'm going to tie off these two like fasten off ends now. So I can just tuck them into the body here. I'll shove those in. Okay. And then using your needle, I'm just gonna sew up the hole that we just stuffed through. So I'm gonna come up through the closest leg. You guys can see that there. And I'm gonna bring it back over through that leg. So basically sewing up the furthest stitch in the leg first, okay? And then I'm gonna be coming down a little bit further. I usually go through every spot twice, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. You really don't want this yarn to be snapping. That would be really tragic. So going through twice will take some of that extra pressure off. Okay, and then through the other leg as well. Okay, so that's how we look. Can we see? Oh, there we go. Okay, so it stood up really nicely. And now this one, I'm gonna weave through and around. Probably going to bring it to the back to do that. So to weave it in, I'm just going underneath a bunch of stitches, or through the stitches, I guess. Okay, and I'm gonna go kind of like through a circle so that once the yarn ends up going back on itself, it really can't be pulled to come undone. Show you what I mean. So let's come back the way we came. Okay, and then back down in the first set of stitches that we went through. There we go. So you see why we did that. So if we, for some reason, were able to find the original like sewing thread here where we closed the gap, you couldn't pull on it and then have this unravel. It would basically just like cinch on itself. So it's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. And we'll just hide this yarn tail. Here we go. Yay, it's taking shape. Let's start the arms now. So the arms are started with the blanket yarn and your 7mm hook. So we're going to start with our magic ring and work 6 single crochet. In round 2, we're going to work 2 single crochet and then an increase, and then repeat that. Okay, I'm going to secure my magic ring here so that I can turn my work right side out. Okay, let's single crochet around. Round 4, we're going to do 6 single crochet and then a decrease. And then we're going to offset our next decrease, so we'll single crochet 2. And then a decrease. And then single crochet 3. Then we'll single crochet around. Okay, now we're not going to be stuffing these arms. We are going to work our fingers first, and then we'll do our last fasten off. So all I'm going to do is kind of, you can leave it as a loop or throw your stitch marker in there, either way, but we're just going to kind of leave this as it is for now. We'll come back to this working end. Just going to trim that down a little bit. Okay, so let's grab our worsted yarn and our 3.75 millimeter hook. So we are going to be attaching our yarn to round 1 where the magic circle is. So you can kind of see where the stitches are. Oops, let me get into one here. There we go. Okay, so we are going to be working an increase into each of those 6 stitches. So I'll show you what that looks like. So we go 1, 2, so that's our first increase. Let's find the next stitch. 1, 2, and the next stitch. Okay, super awkward to work that, I know. because I got some funky stitches. It's okay, it won't matter. Okay, so we've got 12 single crochet there. Okay, now we're going to work basically the fingers kind of like the same way as the feet, to be honest. So let's come in here to our first stitch. Get into the yarn, there we go. Work a single crochet. Now, if you find that your yarn is not super snug, it kind of doesn't really matter. There's not gonna be any fluff in the hands, so you don't have to worry about fluff escaping. So if it's a little bit more gappy and you have to make it more loose, it's totally fine. Okay, so let's do single crochet 2. And then we're going to do the toe is worked the exact same way as the finger with like the claw and everything. So we start with a single crochet, we chain 3, we slip stitch in the second from the hook, and then we single crochet into that last chain. Okay, and then again a single crochet in between. Okay, so the claw starts with a single crochet, and then we worked our modified picot. Stitch in between. And then our last claw. And then just single crochet the rest of the way around. So there should be 5 stitches. Okay, so it looks like that, kind of funny. And now we're gonna do the same thing we did last time. We're gonna decrease all the way around. So that'll be 6 decrease stitches. Remember to work behind your claws as you're going around them, so keep them close to you. Okay, that's it. That's 6 decreases. Let's fasten off. Give yourself a little tail for securing. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did with those toes. And I'm going to bring, oh, wrong needle. I'm going to bring the yarn tail from where I attached. I'm going to bring it outside of the work. There we go. So that I can secure the 2 ends together. And we'll close up that circle, that gap here. Okay, and then I'm going to just sink these yarn tails inside the arm. So all the way out here. Okay, and I'm gonna trim them, basically just shove the ends inside. Good. Now to finish off the arm, because we haven't fastened off here yet, oh, that's what it looks like by the way, the little claws, so cute. We are going to basically fold this in half in single crochet 3 across. But the reason why we didn't fasten off yet is because we want to make sure that when we single crochet 3 across, that we are laying flat to the fingers. So I can see here if I were to fold this in half so my fingers are centered, I need to remove a stitch. So you can remove or add stitches as you need to be able to fold this in half properly. Here we go. So I'm gonna go ahead, single crochet both ends together. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and that's what it looks like. So we'll be attaching this onto the body and then the fingers will be facing up. Let's give ourselves a yarn tail for sewing onto the body and fasten off completely. And that's it, that's our arm. We are going to go ahead and make a second one. All right, so we have just finished both arms. We're gonna go ahead and sew those on right now. So let me move a few things out of the way here. I'm not sure if you guys can see, but I'm actually wearing my house coat right now. I'm sitting right next to like the vent for the AC, and when I was filming this a little bit earlier, I was starting to freeze, so I actually went and grabbed my house coat. So now I am super cozy, but it looks really funny. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but that's what that is. Okay, so we're gonna be sewing the arms on. We're gonna be sewing them right into like round one of the body. We want them to kind of squeeze right into the crook of the neck. So each arm is going to be stitched over 3 stitches. Remember we did the 3 single crochet across the top. So I'm going to bring them up. I kind of want them hovering around right at like the opening of the hood. So I'm actually gonna come in right here. It's gonna look like that. And as I sew pieces on like arms, I go over every stitch twice to help kind of handle the pressure a little bit better of when they get tugged on. Okay, so that's the first arm. Obviously, I didn't mention it before, but you want to make sure that the claws are facing up. And for the yarn tail, I'm going to just bring it into the body here for a minute and pull it up. And I'm going to be tying it off with the yarn tail from the other arm to secure it. Okay, so let's leave that one there for now. And we'll go ahead and grab our second arm. Okay, so I'm going to be sewing this one from the opposite direction, so just because that's where my tie off is. So we've got the front stitch here, so I'm going to count 3 back. So I'm going to be starting at this one. All right, so we finished attaching. Let's tie off these yarn tails. Here we are. Make sure they're in the same stitch, looks like it. And then we'll hide them in the body. Okay, so that's what we look like. Starting to take shape now, how exciting. Now we're gonna start working on the ears. So we're gonna start with the insert. We're gonna be working on this part here first. So we're gonna start with that darker color, then work out to our kind of like face color, and then we'll do the ears after. So first let's start with that little inner insert, basically the darker color of whatever you've gotten chosen to go with for the rest of your body. So I've got kind of like a dark brown. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of a tail here for weaving into the head. And we will start with a slip knot. And we are going to chain 6. And then starting in the second from the hook, we're going to do a half double crochet all the way back down. So 5 half double crochet. Okay, we are going to fasten off here. Give yourself a little bit of a tail just for weaving in, but we're not sewing with it. Okay, so just like that. Now we can get rid of that darker yarn and go back to our regular worsted. And we are going to be attaching on the chain stitch here. And we are going to, there we go, chain 1 to secure. We are going to do half double crochets. So we'll do 5, 1, doesn't want to go in there. There we go. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and then in this turning chain right at the very top here, we're gonna go into it and work 3 half double crochet. Okay, and then working back down the other side, we have another 5 half double crochet. These ones are worked right into the half double crochet from the previous color. Okay, now for fastening off this piece, we are going to give it a bit of a tail because this is what we're going to be using to sew it onto the back of the ear. We'll fasten off there. And now we are going to go grab our blanket yarn. So we're going to switch hooks back to our 7mm. Grab our blanket yarn. And we are going to do a magic circle. And do 6 single crochet into the ring. You're going to single crochet around. Oops. Where's that stitch? The first one's always the hardest to get into. There we go. Secure my tail. Okay, back to the 6 single crochet. And we'll flip that the right way out. Okay, now we're going to increase. We're going to do 2 single crochet, increase. And we're going to repeat that. And now we just have 2 rounds of single crochet around. Okay, and then we'll do a slip stitch and fasten off. We are going to need a tail on this for sewing onto the head, so give yourself a bit there. Okay, and that's it. Now we are not going to be stuffing the ears. We're just going to leave that as is. And I'll show you how we're going to sew it together. All right, so we're going to be sewing this onto this basically. So to start, I'm going to kind of tack it into place with these brown yarn tails so I know exactly where it's going to be, and then I can just kind of sew all the way around. So how I do that is I'm going to put the yarn onto my needle here. And I've laid this out flat so that this yarn tail is on one side, okay? And I'm going to tack it right into that center stitch right here. So on one side here. Basically that also sinks the yarn tail, so you don't have to sew it in anywhere. We're gonna be just knotting this on the inside. Okay, good. And now let's sew it into place. So I'm going to use this long yarn tail that I have here. And I'm going to be bringing it back down to this front stitch and coming up in behind. Now you can sew on a number of different ways. I like to sew into that back loop, like the hidden loop on the half double crochet, because it gives it kind of like a nice full border around the outside. It kind of just sits there. But if you prefer, you can also sew in through basically any of these loops or all of the loops, and it'll give you a different look. But for me, I kind of like how it just looks like it's just sitting on top. Okay, and pull that nice and snug and it will just sink right in. Okay, now for this, I don't even go into every loop. I go into every other loop. It's not going to be under any stress, so I'm not really worried about it lifting up. Oops. See, it just kind of looks like it's sitting on top. And then for this last little stitch here, I want it to come up through basically the bottom of that stitch so that I can have this, I'll show you, all the way down to that bottom line of that stitch there. I want it all to meet up there. Okay, so let's sink that on the inside as well, and then we'll just knot everything up. And then this one. Okay, so that looks really nice. I'm happy with that. Let's tie everything together. Wonderful. Get them all together here so they're not peeking through stitches. And we'll just hide that on the inside. Wonderful, there's our first ear. We're gonna go ahead and do that a second time, and I will meet you back here. Okay, wow, we made it. So we finished the 2 ears. Now, the only other thing that I do to prepare sewing ears on, the way that I saw what it looked like when I Googled it, the ears kind of get flattened into itself. It doesn't have like a round base, you know what I mean? So just to make it a little bit easier for me for when I'm sewing, I like to kind of seam this up already. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew through both sides with my yarn, basically just prepping it beforehand so that I don't lose which stitch goes into which, you know? Okay, so there's one, and then for the other one, did I do there? There we go. Okay, done. Now let's sew let's sew those ears onto the head. So this is what we're looking like. We are going to be sewing the ears. Let me grab a stitch marker here. Actually, it might be better just to no, I'll use the stitch marker. So we're going to be sewing them basically right here on the head. Between round 7 and 8. So remember this was round 9, 8, 7. I want it to be centered on the head. That doesn't really look centered to me. Okay, this one might have a 2 or a no stitch gap. So depending on how you've sewn your hood on, I'm going to show you here. These 2 stitches for me are centered to the face, right? That looks about right. Now when I look at this one that I've already done, I had 1 stitch in the middle, making like the gap, like that was the center. So in this case, I actually haven't run into this one yet, but I think what I'm going to do is leave no stitch gap. So I'm just going to sew one directly side by side and kind of see what that looks like. This is going to be my test run. Because you're only ever going to have one or the other. Either there's a center stitch or there's not a center stitch. So let's see here. We're going to just kind of mock it up with both. Okay, definitely no stitch gap. So I'm going to sew it on just like that. So I'm going to find, for me, it's the 2 center stitches. If you have 1 center stitch, leave 1 gap, okay? And let's go ahead and sew these on. Okay, so I like how that looks. It looks kind of funny. Actually, just the way that it's sitting here, I don't know if you guys can see it. It looks like a frog to me. Like this is like the open, like, whoa, mouth. And then you've got like the little frog eyes and the whites of the eyes. That's weird, right? Okay, so let's just do a quick little fasten off here with these 2 tails. I didn't mention this as I started, but when I was sewing those ears on, I was only sewing them onto the hood, so I wasn't going into the head. I don't think I'd be able to get this yarn through the head stitches. Same thing when I'm hiding these yarn tails, it's just going into the space between the head and the hood. I don't want it to go through there. There we go. Oh, that was so close. I almost just snipped my hood. We do not want that. I think I would cry. Okay, cool. Let's work on the face detailing next. Now we're going to be starting the eyes. So this is what we need our little tiny hook, the 2.75 millimeter, and our like weight 1 yarn. We're going to be working on the pupil and then the whites of the eyes. Kind of looks like that here. The first pupil and then the whites. And then we're going to be embroidering on the rest of the face. So let's start on the pupil. So we have a magic ring. I do not love working with yarn this small, but I did try originally to do this with a larger, like a worsted yarn, and the eyes were massive and they looked really clunky. So it's a necessity. So we have the weight one. Okay, so into the magic ring, we have a single crochet, then a half double crochet, and a double crochet. Then a half double crochet, 2 single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, and a single. Okay, and we will pull that together, and it gives us a nice little oval. Let's fasten off. You don't need a yarn tail for sewing this, basically just the ends enough to like secure them inside the head. And we are going to finish this pupil off with that seamless finish. I have a feeling that none of this is going to show up on camera because it's so small and everything. But basically I'm going to insert my hook into the half double crochet and then back into that single crochet that I came from. Okay, and then just secure my yarn tail at the back. So basically I just like worked a fake single crochet over the first single crochet. And then my second yarn tail from the circle, I will bring it through here, just a couple of stitches. I'm not going to go all the way around. And then I'm just going to knot them together. Okay, little tiny pupil. Next, we're going to do the whites of the eyes. So I'm going to find the side where I just did my seamless finish. I'm going to start on the other side. It's a little less messy. And I can see that I have 2 single crochet right here on the side, and then the half double crochet, double crochet, half double crochet make the long parts. So I want the 2 single crochet. I want the first one. So I'm going to insert into the back loop only and add my yarn. And then we'll single crochet there. Working in the back loop only kind of helps minimize that spiky look that you get when you work into each stitch. It doesn't get rid of it completely because we are working into single crochets and stuff like that, but at least it does kind of round it out like a little bit better. So, okay, so we will do 1 single crochet, so another single crochet. And now into the rounded edges. So into the first half double crochet, we're going to do a single crochet and a half double crochet. Oops, my yarn split there. There we go. Okay, into the double crochet, we're going to work 2 half double crochet. And then into the last half double crochet, we're going to do a half double crochet and single crochet. Okay. Now we're going to single crochet into the next 2 single crochets. Perfect. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. So into the first half double crochet, single crochet, and half double crochet. Okay, 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. And then a half double crochet and single crochet into the last one. Perfect. So that's what we get there. I'm going to fasten off with a nice long tail, and we're going to use that for sewing onto the face. And I'm going to do that with a seamless finish as well. So I'm going to skip over the first single crochet and go to the next one. And come back. And just kind of pick up that floating piece, knot it down. Perfect. So that is what we have. So I'm going to go ahead and make a second one and then meet you back here. Okay, so I'm almost done here. Just gonna say, if there was one stitch that I did not enjoy doing, it was the back loop only. I cannot stand it, especially working like a half double crochet, like all those loops fitting and stretching and everything into that little back loop. It's not my favorite. I think it looks kind of messy, and I purposely try not to incorporate back loop only into my designs, but sometimes you have to. But man, that was not fun. I'm sure when I edit it and it has all like the nice music going on in the background, it's gonna look really serene and whatever and peaceful, but just gonna say that was not peaceful working this little piece. Okay, done. That was my rant. So, okay, so I am just going to tie off my white ends here as well to secure, because our starting tail is not secured yet. So let's do that now. And this one. Perfect. Now we are going to sew these on. Okay, so first we're going to place these eyes and see what they look like on the face to kind of figure out the right positioning for them. Okay. So basically I want them to be centered to the face in every direction. So if you see like the way that this looks, the eyes are centered right between like the chin and the forehead. So we're gonna do that, and I wanna have 3 stitches in between the eyes as well. So I'm going to kind of peg it, I think, here. So we'll just, I just use my needles to do this. Here we go. Come on, you. Here we go. And I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3. That looks about right. I don't have enough needles to do all of them, but okay. And if that was tacked down, I think that that looks good. I'm happy with that. So before I get started, I'm just gonna get rid of some of these tails. These have all been secured already. They basically just have to get tucked into the face now. So I'm gonna insert it inside the eye, or underneath the eye rather. And just get them out of the way. And that's actually going to help tack it in place as well. Okay, and this white one too, we'll tuck him in as well. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start sewing. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the ears, and when I'm sewing into place, I'm only going to be coming up through the back, like the third loop only of that half double crochet. So I've got kind of like a nice little chain border. So just finding my starting spot. Does anybody else get really nervous when they start sewing pieces on like this? I almost get like sweaty, just like stressing out about it. Even though I've like triple checked the positioning and all that kind of stuff, it's so frustrating when you get to the end of it and realize it doesn't look good. All right, so we have the first eye on. I'm going to get rid of these little tails that we don't need. The one that I just sewed with though, I'm going to be tying it off with the other eye tail. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the first one. Okay, wow, that was a feat. That was not my favorite part, but I think they turned out pretty good. They are like centered right in there. I like it. So let's secure those tails, hide them, and then never do that again. What do you guys think about that? I was saying it stresses me out so much with the sewing, and because that went pretty good, like that was the first time through, I didn't have to take it apart or anything. So we're just gonna like knock on wood that this is gonna, the rest of it's gonna go really well too. The eyes on these guys are so funny. They've got such like a dead stare. The eyebrows help a little bit, get rid of some of that like weird vacant eyes. But I don't know, these guys crack me up. Okay, so we have the eyes there. Now we're going to work on the smile. Okay. Now I've cut a nice long piece of yarn to do the smile. It's the same yarn that I used for the pupils, so the weight one. And we are going to basically like tack it in place. So the smile comes up about halfway through the eye, and we want to position it halfway between the eye and the hood. So I'm gonna have it there, and I'm going to bring it all the way over to the same spot on the other side. So I'm following my around here. So that's going to come right through. Let's see if I can get it there, in there. Do I want it higher? No, that's good. Okay. Now, how this works is our smile is going to look kind of like that, right? So I'm going to bring the yarn back through where we just inserted it. And I'm going to be tacking it in 4 different places. So I have 2 along the bottom, and then I have 2 kind of halfway in the middle. So I'm going to find the 2 positions on the front bottom that I want to be coming up through. So I want my smile to probably come down to about here. So I'm going to come in here and here. So we'll do the far one first. Okay. Now we only want to pull this as snug as we want the mouth to be. So I'm happy with that. It lays nicely all by itself. And all we do is, since I came underneath this loop, I'm just going to come in on top of it this time, and then come out where I'm going to do the other tack, which is, let's see if I can get to it, somewhere in here. Okay. So what that does is it kind of just sits on top of the smile, just like that, but holds it there. So we're going to do the same thing right here as well. So I came in from underneath the loop, so I'm going to tack it from on top. And now I'm going to come out on this side. So I think I want it to come out over here. Okay, that's looking good. So we'll do the same thing here. Every time I come back in, I'm going back into the exact same stitch that it's coming out of. I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera, but just so you know. And there. I want it to come out over here. Yep. And when I'm all done, I'm gonna come out into the same loop that I started in, or the same stitch, I guess, that I started in. That's kind of goofy. It flattened out a little bit in the center more than I probably would have preferred, but that's okay. I think it's just this one looks weird. That one looks weird. I'm gonna take it out. Hold on. There it is. So you want it to be like nice and rounded, and that didn't seem rounded. So maybe it needs to be in here instead. Just a little bit over from where I am. Yeah, that's where it needs to be. Okay. And back out the original stitch. Yep, I'm happy with that. And if you have kind of like a loose spot right here, since this is all one strand, you can just kind of pick at it, bring it over, and then pull your other strand to straighten it out. Okay, I'm happy with that. That looks really good. And now we're just going to secure it with a knot. It looks like this. I actually came up through my yarn strand. Let's get it out of there. Oops. Wrong needle. I'm wondering what happened there. There we go. Now I can tie a knot. Okay, and we'll hide that tail. Get in there. Good. Okay, we're shaping up. Now let's do the teeth. For the teeth, I cut another nice long strand of yarn here. It's just going to be embroidered all the way across. Now these guys have 9 teeth. So what I'm going to do, because everybody's positioning is going to be a little bit different depending on how you sewed your face into the hood, right? So I know though that there's going to be a center tooth and then 2 edge teeth and then a couple in the middle. So let's start with the center teeth. So I'm gonna work right in here. Looks like I'm spanning about 2 stitches here, maybe a stitch and a half. If there's a decrease, I can't tell. Okay, pull that in. And basically we're just gonna be doing a bunch of like amigurumi, like V smiles here. So we're going to come back into the same stitch that we started in and come out underneath. Okay. Now I came out inside my V already, but if you are not, you can just insert your, your needle through here to come up. And I'm going to tack it the same way we did with the smile. I'm gonna go back into the same stitch that I just came out of, and I'm gonna do the edge stitches. So come out right at the tip of the smile. Okay, cool. There's our center, our single center tooth. Okay, let's do the exact same thing. So we're going to be making a V. Where is it? There we go. Okay, good. Back into the same stitch. Now I have 3 more to do, so I'm going to just finish this side and then go to the other side. So I'm going to come out in the same stitch so that my teeth are touching. That makes sense. There we go. Okay, and I have to do 3 more teeth in the middle here. 1, 2, 3. So let's do that now. Oops, my yarn didn't like that for some reason. Oh, that one's just a little dagger pointy tooth. That's okay. 1. Oh, what am I doing here? That's not what I meant to do. As I was sewing that in, I was going, this doesn't look right. Hold on a second. Sorry. I meant to come down into that same stitch there. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we filled in that side, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So we're going to start it at the top of the smile. There we are. Nope. I want it in that stitch, but I want the black to be on the one side of it. Come on, you. There we go. Okay, now my last tooth is kind of funny looking, just this little spiky guy. I'm going to bring these up into the same stitch somewhere, maybe down here, both ends I mean, and we are just going to tie them off. Now you'll see that my teeth are not 100% symmetrical. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to be able to make that completely symmetrical, but that's okay, it gives character. If you're a little creepy bunny monster, then snaggle teeth are perfectly acceptable. Here we go. Nice. Perfect. Now let's do the nose. So for the nose, I'm gonna use the same color that I did for the ears, and we'll just cut a little piece here. And basically, we are just going to be embroidering a little triangle into the center of the face. So I'm going to be putting my nose, I think right here, basically just centering it between the two eyes. Perfect. Yep, I like that. So I'm going to loop it through again. Okay, and you can totally not do a triangle shape if you don't want to and just kind of make this a little bit bigger. I mean, that's quite cute. Maybe I'll just do that for this one. What I was gonna do for the V shape, I'll show you. Just kind of fatten that up a little bit. Is I was gonna do the same thing that I did with the teeth, because he does kind of have like a triangle nose. So I was gonna, actually, yeah, that is cute. Don't mind me, I think out loud. So let's do that then. Give him a little triangle. And we'll basically just fill it in over top. Okay. Yep, I like that. I'm not gonna touch it. So let's tie those off. Are we in the same stitch? Yep. Okay, we only have one more step to go. We just need some eyebrows. So let's make those up really quick. For the eyebrows, we're going to be working in our worsted yarn again. And I'm going to give myself a tail. And I'm going to start with a slip knot and do chain 5. And then starting in the second chain from the hook, we are just going to single crochet 4. The eyebrow does not need to be tight. You can loosen this up just a little bit with your tension. Okay, that's it. Give it a little tail and fasten off. Okay, now we're going to sew our eyebrows on. So when I'm sewing these guys on, I'm going to leave the yarn tails facing outward, just like that. And let's start with this guy. So I'm going to be working along the top of the eyebrow first. Now, the way that you shape your eyebrows definitely give it different expressions. So I'm just going to be going flat and kind of give it that like hooded, like big eyebrow kind of look. You can turn them in and make it look angry. You can turn them out and make it look kind of goofy, happy. I'm just going to go flat across the top. So let's bring it in. I'm going to be sewing the top along like the top part of that eyebrow into the round that's right above my eyes, like right in here. And this, I wouldn't really call this like sewing in, it's more of just like tacking in place. It's very loose because you want it to just still kind of float on top. Now I came up through that stitch. I'm not doing a whip stitch all the way around the top because I don't want it to become like in line. I still want it to sit on top of my stitching. So I'm basically just going to be going in and out of the stitches here. Just like that. And then bring it back in here. Back up through. And where does that want to naturally sit? I want to say it's in here somewhere. We'll pull it out and see in a second. Okay, yep. I might have like a little bit of like a unibrow by the time we're done, but that's okay. And then with the other tail, we're gonna do the exact same thing along the bottom. You wanna make sure that your eyebrow is hanging over top of the white part of that eye a little bit. But if you sew it into that round that I showed you right above the eye, then it will fold down nicely right into position. And we come back down, this is going to be sewn into the eye somewhere. Just like find a stitch to get under. There we go. so that it hangs over the eye like that. Just want this to come up. There we go. That's good. Okay, that looks funny. I don't know if I'm gonna let that hang out right there. We'll see what the other side looks like. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so you know how I said I wasn't sure if I was gonna go back and kind of fix these like loosey goosey eyebrows in the middle? I actually really love it. So I'm going to not mess with a good thing. And I am just going to fasten off here. I'm so excited. We are right at the end. Oh my goodness, you guys, we did it! How cute is that? It's funny, when I was sewing in the last little bits, I was thinking, can you imagine what the inside of this looks like right now with all the zigzagged crossed ends that have just been like, weaved through the face, through the whole project? But look, we'll put him sideways. Yay! I hope you guys enjoyed making him. I will admit I enjoyed making him, and I also didn't enjoy making him. There was definitely some parts that were not my favorite, but the result is too cute. Thanks for following along. Bye.